Now, you're going to find this really interesting, I think.
Apollo 17, okay.
Look at, there's the camera, right? There's the rigging, right, above them. Look at the camera. There's the lens. Yeah, there's the camera right there. There's reel number of the take-up reel with the film in it. What a beautiful picture of that rigging sitting right there. I mean, we've looked at this before, but I've never shown it like this.
If it was a just genuine reflection on the visor, which is what it's purporting to be, on the right-hand side you've got the flag, an image of the American flag, so part of it's correct. But this whole left-hand side, where that camera is, it looks like it's been manipulated, or somebody's trying to cover something up, and not very well.
The lem is directly behind his back. There should be no reflection other than the lunar surface.
And no matter how many times you show people this in a video, they cannot see it.
And then that means that that's an artificial light.
Yeah, it is. That's when I tried to kind of get this guy in there, you know, like you can see that that's the type of camera it is. There's the lenses right there, for crying out loud. I mean, you can't miss that. If you cut that out here, there's the camera and the rigging right there.
Yeah, it just fits right in there perfectly, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Interesting.
There's other ones of this too. We've checked on the March to the Moon, we checked on Google, NASA.gov, and the Apollo Lunar Surface Journal. So it is there. Somebody has not photoshopped that in. That's there.
It certainly looks like a reflection of something, because that camera there, where you indicated it, that's a reflection of something behind the photographer.
I think what's happening is that the boom's over here, like way up here, there's the boom, right? And then it's coming, you know, and then now you're coming down. But of course it's going to be the opposite way because he's looking at it in a reflection.
Yeah. It's possible that that picture was one of the series taken at the New Mexico Air Force Base, where President Johnson was attending the faking of Apollo 11, because they would then make use of the set for other missions as well. And maybe that was part of it. Maybe that was how it was created. It was all done here on Earth because, as we know, photographic film cannot survive in a vacuum. And that camera appears to be a cine camera with film in it. Now, if the film cannot survive in a vacuum, which we know it can't, damn it, I mean, those pictures up behind you, Robert, are an example of what happens to a photographic film under a relatively low level of vacuum.
And I'm almost wondering if this here is a shadow down here, if it could be, or if this is just something else.
It could be the shadow from the boom, yeah.
But he doesn't have his hand on the trigger, you know. I mean, his hand's up here and the camera's over here, so he can't be snapping a shot with his hand, unless it's mounted on his chest and the other one is using the trigger. But
if it was mounted on his chest, the reflection of it would be much lower down.
He's pretty high up there.
Yeah, it is, which is why I say it's a reflection of something behind the person taking it.
That is Cernan.
It's certainly a very questionable image. Well spotted on that one. But something you mentioned a while back, Robert, the two pictures behind you, which are the same scene, one taken with a standard film that hadn't been manipulated or damaged, and the other one, the right-hand one, was with a film that had been in a vacuum chamber.
Yeah, both are the Ektachrome. And I developed them in the tank at the same time, right? Because I have two wheels in there. That tank takes two wheels. So I put them in there at the same time so people can't say, oh, well, you did it. It's separate. No, they went in the tank together.
Yeah, which is a standard procedure.
Yeah. I followed everything. And I bought the Ektachrome developing kit for that specific film.
Interestingly, that problem with the film, the idea that photographic film is affected by a vacuum, has never been challenged. We've talked about it now for some time. We've mentioned it many times on different film, different talks. And nobody has challenged it. Nobody's come anywhere near the vacuum effect on photographic film, other than to try to say that you're not doing it properly. I find that a very interesting piece of evidence.
The parrots certainly don't have much to say because they don't do any research themselves.
No, they just parrot what NASA say.
Exactly.
which is why they're called parrots. Parrots are very good at repeating things, but they can't fly very well. Oh dear.
There's the other, that was that first S-Star film that I purchased, was this one. These ones here are the ones that were in the vacuum chamber.
Okay, yeah, and you can see the damage on the film.
Yeah, and then you get to the ones where it's not in the vacuum. Same one, same tree, everything's the same.
Yeah.
What a difference.
Yeah. All of the branches have bleeding around them when they jumped into the vacuum chamber.
That's the same panchromatic film that you see me holding. These ones are all of that same tree, and then you get to these ones, there's the tree, there's the tree.
Yeah.
These ones were in the vacuum chamber, this one wasn't. This one here is about the best one.
The other ones, the branches are just blurred right away.
And then I'll show you the ones that I put in the microwave oven. I put chopsticks in the doors in the oven so that when you open the door, the oven would come on, and I gave it a 1 second burst. What a difference.
Yeah.
Both of these went in the same tank at the same time.
What level of vacuum were you pulling at that point?
10 to the -3, right? And I mean maxed right out.
Sort of Kármán line.
Looking at a force equal to 20 psi, which isn't a whole lot. It's when you get out 62 miles to 70 miles, it goes from 3 to 4. Every 30 miles, it goes up another one.
Then we get to the ones that I hit with the microwave oven of the radiations. This was the one of them where I gave it a burst, and that's all this fogging here.
Yeah.
So that one I put on the microwave oven. That was a 1 second burst there.
And it wasn't even inside, it was outside.
Yeah, it was outside the oven. So was this one. Look what it did to this one. Yeah, these are the microwave ones. So this one's really bad. Look what it did to this.
It's almost gone completely. But it's interesting that NASA keep coming back with this idea that they spent only 2 hours inside the radiation belts. And they don't make what it was like outside the belts. I mean, it's radiation all the way to the moon.
And mind you, this is the same film, all of this. This one here is normal.
Right.
This one has been hit with radiation from the microwave oven for 1 second with the film sitting outside of the door with chopsticks stuck into the switches to keep the oven on. I was showing Scott, I only had the film sitting right by the door, about an inch away with the door open.
In fact, it's even more pronounced on the color film. I say there's pictures behind you.
Yeah, I mean, that's crazy.
I mean, when was the last time you saw blue hills? As blue as that? I mean, you get blue hills, I know, in certain conditions because of atmospheric interference.
Now you can see the comparison. This was hit with radiation. This here was when I tried squeegeeing the chemicals off. I didn't let this dry right away.
Okay.
Okay, so that's what this stuff is here. I'm just looking at the fogging. The radiation didn't do any of this. This is what the radiation did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this.
If you had to run 2 or 3 seconds, you wouldn't see anything.
Look at how even the pictures work. Like it's almost pushed over. Like there's the frame.
I know the frames aren't square anywhere. That's the funny thing is, Marcus, one of his photographs, the picture of the house is actually upside down on the roll. Why is it upside down is beyond me.
That was the first roll radiation test results, was this one here. That was the first result. Let's get that one of the house. Yeah, that was bizarre, wasn't it?
There it is, upside down.
Bloody hell. It is. Yeah, you're right.
It turned it upside down, and no reason for it.
Hey, look at this. There's right side up.
Yeah.
And the house is now, it's upside down. It's almost like it did this frame bleed into this one, but this just wrecked the whole. Like even down here, look at this. You can't even read this.
No, you can't. It actually be quite clear on a film when you've developed it, but it's gone.
And that's just leaving it outside the door. Just leaving it 1 second. That's all this was. They're all the same roll. This is the same one too.
Yeah.
And then you come to the ones that weren't in the chamber. Every single one of them worked out. There's not one of them that are fogged, any of them. That's the control. All of this is the control, yeah.
In fact, that's the result you would expect from a film that has been exposed to radiation. And as you say, it wasn't very much radiation, just 1 second.
So I purchased 6 of these.
Yeah.
These were about 30 or 35 or 40 bucks a pop.
It's a very valuable experiment you've done there, because it demonstrates what people have been saying. Because they've always questioned the levels of radiation encountered on the Apollo missions, not on Mercury, not on Gemini, because they didn't go far enough. And if you take Al Bean at his word, when asked if they had been through the radiation belts, and he said, I don't think we went far enough to go through them.
That says a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you'd think an astronaut trained to the level he was trained at would know where the radiation belts were, and he might have gone through them. It was only when he was told where they were, and he said, oh, well, we must have been through them then. I mean, that's not very good behavior. That's not very good examples from an astronaut who's supposed to know about space and the dangers of it and how they're going to be protected from those dangers.
This was not hit with radiation. This was just inside the vacuum chamber, this one, right here.
Okay.
Yeah, it's already affected enough being in the vacuum chamber.
You don't see any of the fog down here, but the microwave wiped the stock number out.
Yeah, it did.
It's already put a haze right across the entire film, though. You can see that.
Yeah, it has.
Yeah, there's still a bit of a haze there, yeah. And don't forget, all of these, I mean, they're all in focus.
It is possible that at the level of vacuum you subjected the film to, it tore 10 to the minus 3, that it would only have a very small effect on it. I mean, you can see that it has had an effect, albeit not particularly visual. But if you take that film and put it into Tor 10 to the minus 12...
It would make it disappear, just like the Mylar.
Yeah, exactly. It would just disappear, because the film wouldn't be in a position to record the image and for it to be developed, because it was only photographic film that was used. I always emphasize this point, that it was never digital. When they are scanned in, they become digital, but they weren't taken as digital images. They were taken on photographic film. And that is the key point.
There's 10 to the minus 3 right there.
It certainly affects the color balance of the film, which is probably the first thing you'd expect to have.
It just means one of the layers is outgassing.
Yeah.
One of the color layers is outgassing, so it's no longer present or viable.
This one has to be one of the worst.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's a very impressive piece of evidence, that. You know, you're showing something which is indisputable, that the pictures are different, and then when you say, well, the one on the right was put into a vacuum chamber and it produced a different result, it's indisputable.
Look at the color difference on that tree on the right.
Look at how it's just bleeding all over the place up here. When you really look at it, this is bad. Yeah, now have a look at that. Wow. Look at the difference in those trees.
Especially the ones at the back, where you've got really quite marked deterioration in the green layer of the film, which has been outgassing quite severely.
Here is crazy.
Yeah, well, the tree on the left, the branches kept going, they'd just disappear, wouldn't they? They're just bleeding right out, disappearing into the back.
When you look at these trees here, and then you look at those trees, I never thought that the hues would just go to pot like this.
It shows that the vacuum starts to affect the different layers of the film, the different color recording layers on the emulsion.
So red has outgassed already on that.
Yeah, and green is starting to go, and blue, because it's the easiest color to record, is the most prominent one.
Yeah, if it's in the layer and the red's at the top of the layer and the vacuum is affecting the first layer, has gotten through because there's a piece of plastic between each layer, right?
Yeah.
So if it's gotten through to the first layer and it got rid of the red, then you're just going to have the combination of the other two colors.
That's right.
In the photograph, there's no red left, right?
No red left, which indicates that there is something happening to the film.
You could actually reproduce that in Photoshop just by taking your color balance and pulling it down, taking a natural photograph and pull it down to see that happen. And you know how much residual red is left in the film. You know what percentage has outcast.
Yeah. It would be an interesting experiment to do. Take different layers off individually.
You can pull each color layer up and down in Photoshop, right?
Then if you do that and then match it to these pictures, you can then establish the level of outgassing of each particular layer.
Actually, if you pulled the photograph into Photoshop and pulled up the RGB, it should show you the percentage that's there
Yes, it would.
without touching it. So that's easier done. And then you can also reproduce it with a normal photograph and pull the color down yourself to show what's been happening to it.
It was one of the tests that Jarrah White did, showing when NVIDIA did their test to demonstrate that it was quite possible to take these photographs of Aldrin climbing down the ladder.
Yeah, he was just showing what level of reflected light had to be there.
That's right, yeah. And he was using the RGB levels to determine that, because that was something that NVIDIA apparently didn't release, the levels that they were using, which is not surprising because somebody would have cried foul on it, which is what Jarrah White did.
Well, the biggest problem with NVIDIA, the little animation, was the fact that they used diffusion of light around the sun to match the photograph, which simply proves that it was taken on Earth. Well, if somebody else is trying to prove it the other way, they definitely don't want to do that and pull a piece of equipment out that makes it even worse than what we've created. But
Probably why there's been no objection to the use of the vacuum chamber, because people know what the result would be. It's logical. It's not conspiracy or anything, it's just logic, scientific logic.
You've got several things to deal with. You've got the radiation, you've got the vacuum, and then you've got the temperature differentials that would occur on the moon.
Yeah.
By the time you put those three factors together, the film's not going to work. The camera's not going to work. The batteries aren't going to work.
But they all work perfectly. Isn't that strange? They all worked as if they were here on Earth. Guess what? They were.